How are you?
Good, yeah. Really good. It's been quite a year.
Yeah. So let's go way back when we met at the National Theatre on a playwriting course.
Yeah.
So before that you've started... What would you consider yourself now?
I mean, you might as well
How do you sign off your email? That's apparently a good indication.
That is a good indication. I sign off as writer-actor, but to be honest...
In that order?
Yeah. But you know, I feel as if I've put the acting on the back burner and I kind of made a conscious decision to focus on the writing because it was making me happier and I felt like I had more control. And I just didn't feel mentally strong enough at the time to, you know... I had an agent, like it was fine, but I just wasn't... it wasn't feeding me anymore.
Yeah.
And so when I started on the writing courses, which was a little bit before we met, at Soho first and then the National, I was like, this is great. Like, this is just so much nicer for me personally because I felt as if I had another string to my bow. And I always thought it started off me being like, well, if I can't get the parts that I want, why didn't I just write them myself?
Yeah.
And that's where Anomoly started because it was going to be a one-woman show. It obviously ended up being a lot bigger, which is great. But yeah, so we met January 2017.
Yes.
That was the National course. That was 10
You'd already
weeks.
started to develop Anomoly at Soho, wasn't it?
Yeah, it started at Soho, but I didn't actually... the play that I wrote there was completely different.
Yeah.
But after I left... Because when I was at Soho, it was all Fleabag. Like, that was even before it was big. Like, she'd just written it at the Soho Writers Lab. So everything was like one woman show, and I was just so desperate to do it, and it just wasn't.
So she did inspire you.
Oh, hugely. Yeah. Which feels funny now because like, everything's like Fleabag, and actually female creatives are starting to kind of trying to distance themselves from the Fleabag, umbrella. But she really did because it was all the rage. Like there was Bitch Boxer by Charlotte Josephine, Fury by Phoebe, Eclair, Powell, and Fleabag. Those were the three big things going around Soho, and that's what I really wanted to do /be. And I wrote something completely different. I chickened out. I think I did something just different, and it was fine. It was a practice run for me. I see it now for Anomoly. And then after I left Soho, I was like, let's just start writing this story about a woman who has a problematic relationship with her dad. That was what it was. And then in October, the Harvey Weinstein arrest happened.
So where did that initial spark for the idea come from? Was it just...
What, pre-Harvey Weinstein?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think my original character was very, very unlikable. She was just a brat, basically, which ended up being Polly Preston, but she is a lot more nuanced, thankfully, by the time it came around. But I really wanted to talk about a girl that didn't go to university and was a bit of a rebel and probably all the things that I thought I was and I actually wasn't. And then the problematic relationship with her family wasn't really anything personal. It was just an interesting dynamic. But to be honest, it wasn't that interesting. That was the point. I didn't know what to do with it. I was like, I like the character, I like the story, I don't really know what I'm going to do with it. And then it was like a light bulb that went off because I was like, okay, if this father patriarchal figure was high profile, how does that change things, and how does fame change things, how does money change things, and that's where it all started really.
And then Harvey Weinstein came along.
Yes.
And did that kind of put you off continuing to develop the storyline, or did it actually kind of help?
I think it helped. I always had in the back of my mind that I didn't want it to be. I was very conscious when the press was starting for it, being like, I didn't jump on the story to profit from it. I really wanted. This was my way of making sense of it because one of my first thoughts when the arrest happened was what happens to his children, like what is going to happen to them, because there was a lot of talk about the women, there was a lot of talk about the victims and him and whatever, which is an issue in itself. But I was like, he has a young wife that's not that much older than me, and two young children, and they will he has older children as well, but they will never be able to escape their last name. They'll never be able to become anything other than a Weinstein. And so how selfish of him that he has not only has he ruined his own life and his wife and everyone around him, but his children as well, just purely selfishly. So that's where the dynamic of the father and daughter came into it. So his actions, how does that affect her, which ended up being them because there's more than one sister in the end of it. So I think it spurred me on. It was scary, but not at the beginning, because at the beginning I didn't know I was writing it to be on the stage. It was just an exercise.
Yeah.
and then it was picked up, and then it became very real because I had a microphone to an issue that was very timely and a bit very touchy. 2017, 2018 were very, every day there'd be another story, wouldn't there? There'd be another coming out of another person, and it's almost like you're praying for your favourite public figure not to be exposed. But so that changed everything. But before that, it just spurred me on, really. I was like, this is how I can have a voice about this subject.
And how did doing the courses help you as a writer?
For all my writer friends, I said just go and do a writer's course, and I actually might do another one because it feels like therapy. I don't know whether it felt like that for you, but it felt like I have this thing, and when I'm at home with it, it's really scary, and I don't know, and I'm either all involved in it or not at all. And I felt like when I was around that table, it was a safe space to be like, does this work or does this not work? No, okay, fine. And then when you come the next week, you're like, I've got something that I really like, and then you hear it out loud for the first time with different people. It was just magic. I thought that it was just the best way of just having a discussion about your piece. Where else would you find that? And London theatres are so good at having like subsidised courses. The Soho, Arcola, National, Royal Court, they're not expensive. Like, you know, they're great, and they're good for beginning writers and actually writers who are a bit further down their career, just to kind of loosen up a little bit, because it's very lonely writing sometimes. Yeah, it's just you and your laptop. You throw it across the room. But yeah, it was a huge help. But
do you agree? It's kind of, I always feel when anybody, there's that thing, we all have a story in us.
Yeah.
And we can all tell a story, but there is a craft to writing a story, and I think that you can't take for granted. And a lot of people are encouraged to just write something and put it on. And I think, for me, I certainly developed as an artist and learned that process and benefited, and I think Anomoly certainly benefited from that process hugely. Like, if you'd imagine just putting it on in that first instance.
Well, I mean, it was originally, it was first a one-woman show for me, and then it was a huge ensemble piece of 20 people. Like, I just needed, and Ryan Craig, who was our
tutor,
captain at the helm, he said to me, "You're trying to direct it too much. Just write it. Just write the thing. Don't try and suffocate it." And I was like, okay, fine. So yeah, it was a huge help. I really attribute a huge amount to its success for the National, because they're so helpful.
So it became a three-hander at the Red Lion, and it did really well.
It did. I had no idea how it was going to go. It was terrifying, because once Adam and Wild Child had picked it up, and I kind of thought, okay, this is a thing now, it's going to be on. And then it did garner a bit of press attention because of the subject matter. And there was a few interviews that I did before the play went on where it was tough. Like, they didn't let me just get away with it. They were like, well, what gives you the right to tell this story? And is this a feminist piece? Are you a feminist? And it was all just, I felt very trapped a little bit sometimes. And some of them I thought were trying to make me say things that I didn't necessarily want to say, partly because maybe I was a brand new writer, very fresh, very green. But it was terrifying. And I remember just thinking, oh my God, like, what are they going to say about me? That because it's not a, I mean, you saw it, it's not a cookie cutter Me Too.
No.
Because it shows the grey area. It shows complicity with the women around the public figure. So I was like, oh God, I mean, I don't really fit into either camp here. I'm not on the side of the victim wholly, and I'm not on the side of the perpetrator. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle, and because it was so fresh and raw, I was like, is that going to go down well? And, you know, it did garner a lot of strong opinions, but it was amazing. And the response we got was mainly like, wow, I never thought about it like that, which for a writer is the best thing you can do. I always was told that the best thing a writer can hope for is a discussion at the bar. It doesn't matter what it's about or whether it's good or bad, but you don't want people to come out of your play and go, yeah, it's alright, it's good. So it had a strong response, and I was thankful for that. But I mean, the night before all the reviews came out was just the most terrifying thing. I was like, no. But I was very happy, and it was picked up in South America a few months afterwards. It kind of that's ridiculous. A few countries kind of like reached out and said, we've seen, I think a lot of literary agencies in other countries keep an eye on Fringe Theatre in London because that's where the big shows start out, so they kind of want to get it before it goes to the West End. And so there was a few people that reached out to Adam and I and said, you know, we'd be interested in taking it on for our audiences, which was amazing. And then, Cecilia, the team in Uruguay have taken it on, and I think it will be on next year. They're rehearsing right now, but it's a brand new set of Preston Sisters. It's brand new. Yeah, it's crazy.
And how does that make you feel detached from it?
That's interesting. Yes and no. Like, I'm not.
How involved were you with Anomoly in the casting?
I was very involved.
You were?
In the rehearsal pretty much every day.
Yeah. Which,
some writers aren't, they either don't want to or the director would prefer them not to. I ended up being in the room a lot.
Yeah.
Partly because we were a new company and it was new writing, so it was very exciting for me to be there. And it was a very emotional experience for everyone, but definitely me, because that story had been in my head for 2 years leading up to this point, and now seeing it, I mean, I'll get used to it over the years, hopefully, but the first time you kind of hand the baton over, and Adam was amazing, like he definitely knew what he was doing there, the director. But it was and some of the things that I hadn't realised were so personal in the script, when they were either changed or taken out, I was like, no, sorry, that has to be in there. And he's like, well, why does it have to be in there? And I'm like, well, because it just does. And so it was a bit of a therapy again, a lot of therapy, the theme here. So with the team in Uruguay, it's kind of a relief, to be honest.
Right.
Like I love the play, I believe in the play, I know that they'll do amazing things with it. The casting I wasn't involved with. The script, if they have any questions or if they want to change anything, they get in touch with me, obviously. But I've kind of just said, like, you know your audience is best. I've told the story, now you tell it to the people who you know better than I do. I'm just excited to see it.
So will you be going over?
I hope I will. That would be amazing. I hope I will. We'll see. Next year. It's not, we don't know definite dates yet, but...
And are there plans to do it again here in the UK?
Not as yet. I feel as if, I was talking to Adam the other day, actually, the director, and he mentioned that perhaps it's not a finished play.
Right.
Perhaps there is more to say about it, because for those who've seen it, it ends at a very, very climactic moment, and then it just shuts off. And there were so many people that afterwards that said, "Oh my God, like, I need to know what happens." And I was being all smug and right, like, "Oh, Theatre, you'll never know." But actually, there is a whole other story after the 24 hours of the madness that happened after his arrest. Maybe the fallout. I don't know whether it's finished yet. I'd love it to be on again. I think it could be on again. But I mean, that was only on in January, which feels like years ago, but it wasn't that long ago. So maybe I'd love it to be on again. Yeah. Watch this space.
So you went from that straight into another project, which was completely different.
Yeah. The day after Anomoly finished, I started writing the script for Gretel, which was here at the other palace.
So it was workshopped here in April.
Yeah, it was, the thing about workshop, we never really thought that it would go anywhere else or do anything else, because it was supposed to be just a charity show for Galop. And that's where it kind of was supposed to end. But it just got such an amazing response, and I loved it.
So tell me about it. What was Gretel?
Gretel is the story of, based on Hansel and Gretel, but more about her story. And we kind of took the idea, based on the idea of Toy Story or Shrek, where the characters in the fairy tale are very, they're self-aware. They know that they are Gretel, they know that they are Hansel and the witch. So my idea was, well, what happens when the storybook is closed for however long? Do they go to sleep? Do they, keep going with their stories? Like, what happens? And then slowly it kind of came about the ideas of nostalgia, and that's when I decided to set it in the Second World War, because back then obviously storybooks and fairy tales were a lot more poignant and needed as an escape from what's happening in the real world. So then it became, well, what happens when the book is closed for 20 years, and in that 20 years war has broken out in Britain and Europe? What happens to the forgotten characters? And that's where it kind of started. But it ended up being a story about female empowerment, which I kind of carried over from Anomoly. I really enjoyed talking about female stories. And childhood and letting go and growing up too fast. And also, every piece, no matter how family friendly it is, it's always political. There was a political element of it being, you know, a war-torn, unrestful country, which you'd argue that it's a bit unrestful in this country right now. And how does how important is escapism within storytelling? And yeah, so that's what Gretel became.
So you wrote the book, and the music and lyrics were written by
Charlie Turner. Yeah.
So how did that work? Did you know each other before? Had you met?
We have known each other since we were 11.
Wow, okay.
So we're best friends all through school, and all we used to do was write songs together, which didn't make us the coolest, but you know, it was fun, and we became good at it. I mean, I say we. Charlie is a musical genius. Like, she is so talented in pretty much every instrument and very knowledgeable. She's definitely the brains behind all the songs, and the sound and the feel is definitely hers. So I got in touch with her after talking to Scott and the people at Galop, being like, we want to do this show to raise money for Galop, by the way, is a anti-violence LGBT charity. A person that were close to both of us, unfortunately, was in a homophobic attack earlier that year. So we wanted to do a show for them. It was originally going to be a pantomime, but then as soon as that was brought up, I was like, well, I have to write something with Charlie. Like, that's what we do. We'd written a musical before for children called Little Io, which is based on the Greek gods, and it was put on in like primary schools and stuff. So we'd written before together a lot, and we know each other very, very well. So I thought, well, why don't we try this mammoth task of writing a musical together we didn't know it was going to be here. We just thought, let's just write a musical and see what happens. So I had kind of been thinking about the story for a few weeks, and told her, you know, this is what I'm thinking. And when I told her it's going to be set in World War II, she was like, I don't get it. Like, like, whatever, I'll trust you. And so she sent me a song from The Woodcutter and the Wife that had recently, in this 20 years that the book's been closed, divorced. And she sent me it on voice note. It's called Opposite You, and it was just, I was like, that is it. Like, that is what we are, that's what we need.
Yeah.
And from then on, it was 4 months of back and forth being like, I need a song here, this person has to sing it, it has to say this. And then within an hour, she'd send me, what about this? I'm like, oh yeah, that's perfect. Like, it was, I think it was a perfect start, it was a perfect storm between us. And she's just so clever. The lyrics are so clever. Yeah. And I love the songs. I feel like I'm a fan because I can say that about the actual songs. I didn't write them, but we just created a really
songs had a very pop feel, didn't they?
Yeah,
they were very current and very catchy.
Yeah, and it was just joyous. Like, after Anomoly, which was quite a difficult time, it just felt like a breath of fresh air, talking about something that was just, you know, funny. And it did have an element of pantomime to it. There was, some ad-libbing and back and forth, and because everyone knows the story of Hansel and Gretel, it's a safe space to be in. You know we're going to get.
Play with it, yeah.
And we just played with it. We were just playing with it. That was it, yeah.
Were you surprised at how well it turned out?
Yeah. Oh my god. Yes. I had nobody had any idea. We did it for charity. The cast were amazing. It was a cast of 12. They gave their time and their energy.
They were incredible cast, very talented.
Incredible cast, yeah, absolutely. Like, they were just amazing. And it was on for 3 performances here. We had to add another performance because it was sold out. It was just, just surprising. And I was like, this is great, earning, we're raising money for Galop, and it's great. And then it happened, and I was like, I just can't believe the response to it. It was amazing. It was a different feel to Anomoly, because Anomoly was very much like, dredging up emotions for the audience that they hadn't perhaps felt. But with here, it was like a party. It was just like, this is just great. So I had so much fun with it, and it was amazing on a personal level for me and Charlie to have written something together, because we've known each other for so long. And it was almost like, we always wanted to do it, and now we actually have. So when it happened, we kind of looked at each other and thought, well, we have to, this can't be the end of it, surely. So then the week later, we got a donation to do the soundtrack, to record the original cast soundtrack, which for me was perfect, because we wanted to give something back to the cast, because they'd worked so hard, and so they can have something to remember it by. And so to have almost like a souvenir of it, and also like something to push it forward maybe to the next stage, is amazing. We really wanted to do it quickly, because they can all get jobs and stuff and go away. We're like, okay, we have to do it. So we did it in I think a month or 2. We managed to get them all back together, and it was great. It was like a reunion. It was great. And they really enjoyed doing it and listening to it. I listened to it every day. I'm such a fangirl. So I loved it.
Where is it? Is it available online now?
Yeah, Spotify, iTunes. It's not iTunes anymore, is it?
Yeah, you can.
Apple Music. Yeah.
No, it's iTunes as well.
iTunes, yeah. Everywhere, basically. Everywhere you can get music, you can listen to it. So please do.
That's right. Tonight we're going down in the woods. Let me tell you a story going down in the woods. Everybody listen up, as you know you should.
And then is there any more plans to try and develop it further now?
Yes. We can't say too much, but we're in talks, I guess.
But what have you done? Have you been away? Have you looked at it again, or
no? We thought about doing it in Edinburgh, but that would mean that we have to essentially halve it.
Yeah.
And after doing Anomoly and Gretel back to back, I was mentally finished. And I just needed the summer off, which I've had, just to kind of regroup and do nothing. And so I said, let's just leave it. I would love to see it on in town again or somewhere else. I definitely think it has life. It's very timely in the age of Frozen being so huge and brave, and taking those myths and legends and making it 6. Yeah, exactly. taking the myths and legends and history into the current age with some really catchy songs. It just seems like people love it. So I hope that it's on again. Fingers crossed.
Do you like musical theatre?
I do. I think I started off knowing that I wanted to be an actor. It was definitely musical theatre. A triple threat I kind of wasn't, but I can kind of, muddle through. But yeah, I do really love musicals. I go and see musicals a lot. Yeah. But I never thought career-wise I'd write musicals because I don't know how to write music. But with Charlie, it was just a perfect storm and it was a perfect partnership. I hope that we'll write another one. We love doing it. We love working together. But my passion now is straight theatre. But this has just been an added bonus. Yeah. But it's great. So much fun.
And is there anything else you're developing at the moment?
Yeah, I'm writing. Again, this is in the summer of I can't write anything. It's funny actually. I was thinking. I've done 2 shows this year, and that kind of self-hatred voice in your head that you can't help but feed through is telling me, you're a failure because you haven't done 3. Like there's just it's constant, and I think it's something that's very important to talk about in the industry because mental health is a huge element of it, and a stumbling block, and it definitely has been for me this year. I've done more this year than I've ever done career-wise, so it's been amazing. But Anomoly in January seems like it was 10 years ago. Yeah. It feels like such a long time ago, and I'm writing a new one, replay. But I need to be kind to myself and not put so much pressure on, well, why aren't you in the West End now? Like, it's just, that's me, that's just the way I work. Yeah. I want to write because it's my passion, not because I'm forcing myself to do it. So, yeah, I think I will. I'm still writing, and I will write something else, but I want to take my time and make sure that I'm not. Because it normally took me 2 years, and Gretel took me, 6 months. So I just need to find somewhere in between. Just enjoy it again, because it was our passion, isn't it? Really, to do this, and to force it out seems a shame. But yeah.
So let's talk about that timescale, because funnily enough, Adam Lanson talked about it recently with Guy Chambers and Robbie Williams have written the music for A Boy in a Dress, which is developed with RSC. And Adam quite fiercely defended a statement that Guy had released to say that he'd just written a score in 2 weeks. Yeah. And Adam said it was kind of a lazy attitude and not a very kind of...
Yeah, my opinion of this is if it's good, it's good. Yeah. It doesn't really matter. Quick doesn't mean bad. Exactly. If you can write something quickly, then great. Run with it because it's a lot easier. If you go and see the show and you feel as if it sounds lazy, then call it lazy. But don't call it lazy before you've seen it. Yeah. We wrote Gretel in 6 months, and yes, it probably would have been easier to write it in a longer amount of time to give us a bit more time to kind of think about it. But I was very proud of what we created. I didn't feel as if it felt rushed. Obviously, you can always make it better and you can tighten things up. But I feel as if the content speaks for itself. So I personally think it's a bit too soon to tell whether it's lazy or not, or rushed.
Well, I agree, because I remember when it was the same month that I saw Anomoly, I saw another show here, which had been developed for 6 years. And by comparison, yours felt more developed and more accomplished and I knew they'd started with a workshop and had a work presentation 2 years prior to that. Yeah. But within 6 years, it still didn't feel as kind of...
Yeah, I think everyone's timeline's different.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't mean that you're more talented or more accomplished either way. It just, however long it takes you to create a show that you're proud of, then that's the timeline. If it's 6 years down the line and you still think, this really isn't working for me, then maybe it's time to move on. Because who has 6 years to waste on a project, really? I mean, in this day and age, in this climate. So yeah, I feel as if see the show, then make a judgment. I think there's an element of that where it's like, Guy Chambers and Robbie Williams who are involved in it because they're, well, especially Robbie, because they're a pop star. You think you can write a musical? That's actually really hard. And it's like, there is an element of that, but just wait and see. Give it a chance.
And also, speaking as a new voice in the industry and a female voice, do you feel any kind of, well, not pressure, but do you think it's more of a challenge to be noticed or...
because I'm new or because I'm female, or both?
Both. Independently.
Interesting. Yes. It was
Which is a bigger obstacle? If it is an obstacle.
Oh. Possibly female.
Yeah.
I think new writing is great, and people always want to find the next big thing, but sometimes looking in the wrong places is definitely a factor. I feel as if the arts world at the moment is really lacking in working class stories, in female stories, in BAME stories. It just feels, I mean, what's that really, it's that fact, what's the figure where it says there are more plays that have been on at the National by David Hare than women.
Yeah.
Women. Like, that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Surely not. And when the turning point for me that made me feel really great about the whole situation was when the Guardian article came out about Me Too and Bitter Wheat happened. There was a lot of people who were very angry about the fact that John Malkovich and David Mamet had taken the opportunity with their influence and their experience and their power to create a show about essentially Harvey, Mr. Weinstein, as is Stephen Berkoff. And so you have these big Hollywood actors and directors and writers who are kind of, in the midst of it, talking about the industry that they are profiting from. And it just rubbed people up the wrong way, including me. And The Guardian got in touch with me to talk about it because Anomoly was one of the shows that you could probably put under the umbrella term of, Me Too or Time's Up theatre. And I just, when I talked to them about it and when the article came out, the PR lady from Anomoly, Chloe, texted me and said, you do realise you're part of this movement now, like this, and for me it was a bit of a gut punch moment, being like, I do feel like that. I feel as if I have a voice, and for a new writer, that's incredible, and I will never ever forget that feeling of being part of something and being in the article with all these people like Vicky Featherstone and Morgan Lloyd Malcolm that I idolise. And I feel like, it is hard, much harder to be black, to be working class, to be a woman in the industry. However, I feel as if there is a swing. Maybe I'm being naive, but I feel as if there is a dredging up of, actually, no, we have stories to tell too, and they're as important. There was what was it recently that I saw, I can't remember the source, but it's something like men write about politics and women write about personal issues. First of all, personal issues are always political. Like, there's political is everything. But it's just so untrue. It's so untrue. And I feel as if it's a positive thing for me. I want to be part of a movement that brings female stories back to the forefront. And I feel as if it is slowly getting there, but we need a bigger push. So I feel as if, being female has been definitely, it's hard. You don't get the foot in the door as much as you want to, but when you do, it's more of an accomplishment. So yeah.
What stories would you like to tell?
I want to write about fertility and science. That's my next one that I'm thinking about. I really, inspired by like The Handmaid's Tale, what happens if fertility is so low due to environmental factors. Climate change is something that we absolutely cannot ignore and should not ignore. How will that affect women's issues? Not that fertility is solely a women's issue, but how can we, much like Black Mirror, how can we use science to perhaps meet the children that we couldn't have, and what would we say to them, and what would we, so that's what I kind of want to talk about next. I've had a few health issues that have put my fertility into question, and one of my first thoughts was like, wow, what if I can't have children? Should I have children in this environment, in this economical and social climate? I don't know. It's a lot of questions that are coming up for me. So I like talking about an issue and then doing that with it. So turning it on its head and being like, Anomoly was a Me Too play, but it wasn't. It was about the grey area in between. And the next one I really want to talk about, in the age of we can buy everything, we can buy experiences to do anything. But what happens if you can buy an experience to be a parent? What are the social implications of that?
Did you find during the writing of Anomoly, your opinion changed or wavered from one side to the other?
I think that's probably a fair assessment. I feel the research I had to do for Anomoly was very hard to read and to watch. there's an amazing documentary on Channel 4 that might be still available, Working with Weinstein. It wasn't essentially about the victims that you'd think of. It was the people who worked around him, male and female, but mainly female. People who worked with him, his PAs, his secretaries, his board members, who it was seen as, if you spoke up against Harvey, you were weak. You know, you perhaps didn't have the stamina to take him. You know, you weren't strong enough to withhold the abuse, and it's just such a crazy thing to think about. So for a lot of it, I was very sickened by how this could have happened. But what I wanted to talk about was the grey area in the complicity element of it, because Meryl Streep was a victim of it was an attack where posters were put up around Hollywood, near her home, near the studios that she was filming, and it was her face with "She Knew" across her eyes, which was awful and must have been awful. Meryl Streep probably did know about Harvey Weinstein and what he was doing. A lot of the women did, but the question is, like, what does that matter? Yeah. Is it their fault that they didn't say anything? Would you have done? Like, he blackmailed them into not saying anything. Like, their families were in danger. I thank God I have not been in that situation, but I don't think that it's a black and white area that I would have told everyone. My career would be over, my family would be in danger. I just don't think it's a black and white thing. And so many people in my circle, my immediate circle, were like, well, of course they knew. I was like, well, yeah, but so? Yeah. Does it matter if they knew? So I very carefully and kind of consciously wanted to toe the line between the argument and let the audience decide for themselves. And people had very strong opinions, which is great for a writer. Myself personally, I feel as if I'm still too in it in my head to really, maybe in a few years' time I can look back and be like, you know, it's there's no doubt about it that what happened was awful, and the Me Too movement is so important. I just need a bit of distance from it to really know where I land on, because it's not a black and white issue. No political issue is black and white. There was one person that said to me, surely the women, and mostly women, in the Me Too movement eventually have to just get over it. Which is interesting, because why should they? Yeah. Why should they have to? Because it's their story. This is the point. It's their story, so they can tell it. This is why there was such a huge backlash about Bitter Wheat, because it didn't feel like it was those men's stories to tell. It's not your story. Let women come and have their own voice about this issue that they feel as if they own, especially so soon after it all happened.
It's interesting that you talk about that earlier, about people questioning whether it was your story to tell. And did you feel that a responsibility or an obligation to telling that? Yeah,
hugely. I felt a huge amount of responsibility to do justice to victims of sexual abuse, victims of domestic violence, yes. But I kind of, as soon as I saw it as I have a voice and I'm a writer with a platform that I can tell these people's stories who wouldn't necessarily be able to tell it themselves, then I felt better about it. I really didn't want it to be gratuitous or crude or uninformed or or
exploitative.
Yeah, exploitative, absolutely. So Adam and I were very careful. Every single thing that was in the play had to be there for a reason. There was nothing in there that was to shock you or because it's just inappropriate. We wanted to talk. I felt these women, the three sisters, were both nuanced and flawed and vulnerable women that had a story to tell, and it was my responsibility to get that out. As soon as I felt that, I felt better. But as a writer, you have to take risks. Yeah. And that's how good theatre is made. Is that you just take risks and you tell a story that people themselves can't necessarily tell. So I have a responsibility to do that.
Thank you very much for watching. If you would like to purchase the original cast recording of Gretel, a new musical, it should be, when it's out, available on Spotify and iTunes and places like that, I think. If you do want to listen and you do want to support a new musical, then purchasing would be great. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe, hit the notifications. Love you all. Bye.
I've had quite a day, and that's what she thought.
Bye.